Alright, welcome to the channel. I'm currently filming this as of April 15th, a half hour before episode 8 of Survivor 50 airs on CBS. So I'm here making my predictions early, just so I can compare them afterwards when I do see the results. So my take on how the merge is standing right now is there are three dominant alliances right now, or like three larger alliances that are controlling the game right now. The three alliances are the Honor and Loyalty Alliance, which consists of Chrissy, Coach, Jonathan, Stephanie, and Joe. The Cerie's Wizard of Oz Alliance, which consists of the trio of Rizzo, Cerie, and Ozzy. And the Middle, which doesn't really have like an alliance name, but it's just the players referred to as being in the middle, which consists of four players I consider, which would be Emily, Christian, Rick, and then slightly Aubrey. I don't fully believe she's as much in the alliance as Emily, Christian, and Rick are because they were the original three back on Sela. But I do still think Aubrey is working with them at this point. Now that leaves one player right now, Tiffany, by herself right now. Her number one ally just left last week in D, and her only other connection right now is Aubrey, who also isn't in a great position right now. She just had a big deal with drama with her idol, which finally got flushed out this tribal council, but that does put Aubrey in a little bit more of a dangerous spot because now they know she doesn't have an idol. She has been playing more of a sloppy game. I don't think Aubrey is in as great a position as the rest of the people in the middle right now. So Tiffany is not allied with great numbers or anybody in a really advantageous position. And I really think the two main people who are in danger of going home here are Tiffany, because she's the easy boot, because she's working with essentially no one really very closely, and she's not in any major alliance, or Aubrey because of her not having the idol anymore, her being not very well connected with everyone else. She was kind of the odd person out on Batu, so she hasn't really made any connections with them, and the only connection she really made herself with was Tiffany and Rick and Christian, who I believe Rick and Christian would definitely take Emily over Aubrey at this point. So my predictions for this episode right now are Tiffany and Aubrey. One of those two is going home. I'm going to lean towards Tiffany because I do think Aubrey is in a better position. And I think the person in the best spot right now, it's between three people. Rizzo and Ozzy are both in great positions as they both have idols. They know where all the advantages are, and that trio of Cerie, Rizzo, and Ozzy is very powerful in this game. And because most people know that Rizzo and Ozzy have the idols, they aren't going to want to target them if they go after that group, but they will go after Cerie because she's also probably a more dangerous strategic player. So I feel like Rizzo and Ozzy are both in better positions than Cerie, but they're all in a really good position. And then Stephanie, I think, is in also a great position right now. She's kind of laid low for a while. She's made good connections. She's survived through the majority of votes that have happened this season, especially on that post-tribe swap, but pre-merge era when she was with Christian and Emily. And she had to go through a decent amount of tribal councils to get to the merge. And she's done a very good job of connecting with Christian, Emily, and she's in the middle of the Honor and Loyalty Alliance, which is right now the biggest alliance in the game. And she's got huge shields in Coach and Jonathan right now running that alliance, as well as Joe. Chrissy and Stephanie both are part of that alliance, but they are not major threats when it comes to that alliance. So I feel like she's in a really good position, especially because she also has made connections with Christian and Emily, which can help her connect with the other side of the island. So, episode 8 of Survivor just dropped, and this episode had everything. This was one of my favorite episodes of the entire season so far. There's a brand new twist that was absolutely game-changing, and we'll get into that later. There's a ton of shifting power dynamics that will completely affect the game moving forward, and this vote completely has reshaped this game. This is one of those episodes where you can really feel the season is starting to hit its stride. It's starting to have a lot more action, a lot more twists, and it's awesome. There's a lot of really cool interactions between all the players, and there's been a lot of strategy, especially with multiple people getting voted out more consistently in each episode. Lines are being drawn more clearly but at the same time, there's still enough chaos where nobody feels completely safe. Everybody feels like they still have some sort of target. And for the most part, I feel like there is still a chance for everybody to win or just find some way to come back from the bottom and go back up to the top. And this is why it's an all-star season. These players are all really good, and they've already survived half of the season so far. They're down to the top 11 out of 24 so far, and that's a big achievement. So I wouldn't count anybody out, even if I have them ranked lower on my list, and it's just because of the situation they are putting themselves in. So today, I'm going to break down the partner twist that just happened. I'm going to talk about the Coach and Chrissy vote that just happened and how that shifts power dynamics. And then I'm going to give you my updated power rankings from the 11th best player in the game right now all the way down to number 1 based on positioning, threat level, and how I feel like are their overall chances to win. So let's start off with the partner twist. From an entertainment standpoint, this twist was really, really good. It forced the players on the season to adapt on the fly, and it created situations where people had to work with players they might not normally align with, which is always where interesting gameplay comes from. But strategically, this twist was really, really messy. The biggest impact was how unintentionally exposed pairs and made certain players look way more connected than they actually were. In Survivor, perception is everything, and suddenly duos like Coach and Chrissy, who were on the same alliance, or Devins and Aubrey, who were also in the same alliance, were viewed as more of a threat level because if you're going to take a shot at somebody, you're taking a shot at another person in their alliance. Whereas Christian and Jonathan, there was one player from each of their alliances, and that was hard to vote that group out because each side is getting hurt in this vote off. So it's not beneficial for either side to vote their own ally out and make the third side of the island even stronger, because that's where we were kind of at for a while. Was there was 3 groups on the island that were taking control, which was the middle group: Emily, Christian, Rick, and Aubrey. Cerie's Wizard of Oz, which is Cerie, Rizzo, and Ozzy. And then the Honor and Integrity group, which is Coach, Chrissy, Joe, Jonathan, and Stephanie. And now Coach and Chrissy are gone. So it's just Joe, Stephanie, and Jonathan. And so it's a little bit more even now. But because of this twist, this definitely made some alliance or some groups were the only options, basically. Like, after I saw the twist and like it was revealed in the episode, I kind of had already figured out who were the 2 possibilities of going home, because I went through my head. I'm like, okay, they're not going to vote their own alliance member out, especially not the Honor Integrity group. They're definitely not going to do it because they focus too much on loyalty. And then Cerie's Wizard of Oz, they're already down to 3 people. They're really not trying to get any of those core alliance members out because they are all working so closely together. It would completely screw over the other 2 people in that alliance if one person were to get eliminated. And then the middle is probably where they might have more leeway getting rid of their alliance, but it would definitely weaken the other people in the middle. So none of the alliances want to get rid of any of their players, and that's what made this so difficult. That's what made Jonathan and Christian safe. That's what made, for the most part, I would say Rizzo and Emily safe. Joe and Tiff won immunity, so they were fine. Even though I feel like if they didn't win immunity, they would have been in a lot more trouble here, because Tiffany was already kind of on the outs from the D vote. She was the only person, and still is the only person, to not be involved in any of the 3 major alliances right now in the game. And Joe might have been viewed as expendable, especially to the middle group and maybe to Cerie's group, but definitely not to the Honor Integrity group. But the middle and Cerie's group outnumber the Honor and Integrity group, and I feel like Joe and Tiff would have been eliminated if they didn't win immunity, which is crucial for them. But that kind of made it obvious where it was Coach and Chrissy and Devins and Aubrey were the 2 options, because they're the only two that are from the same alliance, and if you're going to take a shot at somebody, you're also getting rid of one of their allies, so you don't have as much backlash on yourself. So, and the episode also clearly followed on that. It was mainly those two were the only names thrown around. I think Chrissy was the only one who threw around another group's name, which was Rizzo and Emily. But yeah, that is my opinions on the twist. I feel like it was fun to watch, but looking back on it, it was definitely limiting strategically because there was only a couple options that you could really vote for. And the other issue is that now that Coach and Chrissy are both eliminated, the fact that you're taking out two people from the same alliance hinders that alliance completely. Like, the Honor and Integrity group was in a pretty good position at this point in the game because they had an overwhelming majority over the two other groups. So the other groups would have had to combine, and the Honor and Integrity group doesn't have no alliances. Like, they're not completely alienated from everybody else. They weren't in a bad position, but they did kind of get screwed over with the twist. And Coach was just already kind of a huge target going into this. And Chrissy really tried her best to keep Coach from doing Coach things, I guess. I don't know what we were supposed to expect out of that. I mean, he still ruffled a few feathers from the devote. He controlled the game way too much to the point where, like, there was no going back. And he still was kind of acting crazy throughout the rest of it. Like, you could hear him singing, haikus, whatever. Another thing I want to talk about before I jump further into Coach and Chrissy is Devin's fake idol, which was the other huge thing that happened today, which might have been a huge reason why Coach and Chrissy were eventually voted out, but I don't think it was the main reason. I think Coach and Chrissy were already going to be the ones out if Aubrey and Devins didn't play, or if Devins didn't get the fake idol from out in Tribal that he planted. And I love the idea in theory. I think this fake idol could have been really huge in the end game. And I feel like Devins was positioned very well in the tribe that he definitely could have gotten farther to the end game, and he could have helped or worked with Christian more to make a bigger, more flashier move, especially to the jury. Because this move is basically, number one, it could possibly make one of the hugest moves of the entire season. And two, it wins you jury points if you get to the end of the game. Like, that's a very flashy move. But the problem was, I don't think the execution landed. He wasn't necessarily going to be going home regardless. It was still Coach and Chrissy by an overwhelming majority. And it kind of also might have strained his relationship with Aubrey at this point. Like, he just got this idol. He's going to save himself and Aubrey, and then he just doesn't use it. And this is Aubrey's game on the line too, not just his. So Aubrey is definitely frustrated because she knows they could be going home, and she's probably pissed at him because he didn't play the idol. And like, he was worried about that as well, but he still went along with it because he thought he was in danger. But I don't think he like thought through the situation completely, because now going back to Tribal, there's still 11 people left in the game. There's still a lot of game to be played. It is not close to the end game yet. We're still at least 2-3 episodes away from nearing, like, what, Final 8, Final 7, which is normally, like, halfway around most Survivor seasons, maybe a little past. So there's still a lot of game left to be played, and Devins is kind of creating this huge target on himself that he didn't necessarily need to make. And this now fake idol that everyone believes is an idol, besides Christian and him, that brings more paranoia around him, that brings more threat, that brings his threat level up. So I don't think Devins is as good of a position as he was before this tribal council. So I think this move was cool. It was cool at the moment, but I think looking back in retrospective, it did kind of screw over his game a little bit. And all that does factor a lot into my rankings for this week. After recapping that episode, I think I've given enough context for you to kind of assume what some of my rankings are, but I do want to go through and explain why I have everybody ranked from 11 to first. And I will also keep track of how far anybody moves up or down as the weeks go by, just to see like how much the editing fluctuates between each episode. So for right now, my number 11 and the person in the worst spot right now going into next week is Jonathan, pretty easily. And I've kind of explained it earlier. He's a very physical threat. He doesn't really have anybody in his alliance right now. So I feel like he's just not in a good position, and he could be an easy vote out if he doesn't win an individual immunity. He could prove me wrong. He's been doing a better job this season of creating alliances with everybody, but I feel like his main alliances with Coach and Chrissy just got eliminated. Like, he's got Joe, maybe Stephanie, but Stephanie could easily flip just so she could save her own skin. So I don't think Jonathan is gonna make it through these next few weeks. I think he's in a very precarious situation, and it would be a miracle for him to climb his way back to the top. But it's not impossible. I could see him doing it. He's still got a good chance to survive. I just don't think it's likely as of right now. My number 10 spot is Joe. Also, not surprisingly, it's kind of the same situation as Jonathan. Both of his key alliance members were voted out last tribal council, so he's not in a very good position right now. His original game plan with riding with the honor and integrity group to the end has diminished, and he's got to recover at this point. I mean, he tried to last week with Tiffany, and he made a good bond with her, and I think they genuinely have an alliance moving forward. But I don't think he really has anybody else that's really close besides that I'm aware of. He did ruffle feathers with Devins earlier this season, and so he's not in very good relationships with the middle group right now, and he hasn't really made any connections with Sri, Ozzy, or Rizzo, and so I feel like he's also in a pretty bad situation going into this next vote, so I think it's probably going to be Joe or Jonathan going home this next week, just because they're such big physical threats, and this is their lowest points right now in the season, I would say. My number 9, it might come as a shock, but my number 9 is Aubrey. And I know I talked about how Rick Devins just created this huge target on himself, and if I'm going to be having anybody in the middle alliance be lower on my rankings, you would assume it'd probably be Devins. Or even like a Stephanie or something, because she was in that honor and integrity group that also got kind of screwed. I will come back to Stephanie and Devins later, but right now the reason I think Aubrey is number 9 is because she is very closely linked with Devins as of right now, or at least she's assuming she's linked very closely with Devins, which she is. But if they're going to try to take a shot at Devins this next week because of the idol he has, they could also split the vote and focus more on Aubrey just to hinder Devins in case he does play his idol, his fake idol. But they might play it safer on Devins and go for Aubrey. So Aubrey did kind of get screwed with Devins here. I don't think she's going to take Devins not playing the idol very well. She probably won't understand it, or she'll probably assume it's a fake and be pissed at him regardless. As Devins' threat level rises, so too does hers. And she doesn't have as good of connections as Devins does. I feel like Devins has more connections with Christian, with Emily, because they were on that original Sela tribe. And Aubrey is kind of just that like fourth person in that middle group. So she's definitely the safer option if anybody were to target Devins. And she just doesn't have as much connections around the island, so that's why I have her at 9. Slightly ahead of her, and only slightly, I have Rick Devins at 8. And I think he was in a great position before last tribal. I thought no one was going to come after him. He was in a lot of control, and now, after the fake idol move, he did it way too early. And the problem is that now he has a huge target painted on himself, and he's losing, I feel like, his kind of control on the game now. I feel like Christian has kind of kept that control because he's stayed out of the spotlight. He's kept his threat level low. But now, after this last tribal, Devins has kind of made the spotlight go more on him. And while I don't think he's in immediate danger the next tribal council, he could be sometime very soon if the players don't decide to target Jonathan and Joe. So I think he's definitely got to play this next tribal council very well to get back into a power position, and he's probably got to explain the fake idol play to somebody at least. But I think he definitely lost a lot of power in this move, and it felt like a mistake. Number 7, this was a surprise for me going back over, but I have Tiffany at number 7. I think Tiffany had a really, really strong recovery episode. She went from what I thought to be the person in the most danger because she wasn't in an active alliance, and she did some damage control. She built a lot of relationships. I think she now has a really good alliance with Joe. They might be each other's number ones at this point. She's still got a good relationship with Aubrey. Um, she's working her way in with Sari and Ozzy and Rizzo. So she's starting to become more and more of this free agent that will side with whatever majority that they need her for. And her flexibility, while I saw it as a weakness in the last tribal council because she could have been easy pickings and it wouldn't have like really gotten any drama started over it. Now she's her threat level has dropped a lot. And she didn't make any waves this last tribal council, and I feel like there's a lot more players that have a lot more blood on their hands over the season, such as like a Jonathan, Joe, Devins, Stephanie, maybe Christian. I'm not sure, but she still doesn't really have any strong moves that she's done so far this season. She hasn't really been in control, and she still is a free agent, which is dangerous for her as being the only free agent left in the game right now. But she's not in a terrible spot, and I will say she definitely surprised me with how well she did in this episode. My number 6 is Emily. Emily is playing a very quiet but controlled game. She's still kind of a risky player where, like in episode 3, she kind of went crazy and spilled a lot of information that could have been very helpful to her, Christian, and the rest of her alliance. And that did make her lose a lot of trust, and her mouth has caused a lot of her, not necessarily allies, but a lot of people around her to be voted out because of that. And she's burned a lot of bridges. I think she's still in a very good, powerful position right now just because she's part of the middle and she's not, she doesn't have as much of a threat level as Rick Devens or Aubrey right now because of that last tribal council. She kind of stayed quiet. She was with Rizzo. So I think the only person who was really going after them was Chrissy. And it was mainly because of Rizzo. It wasn't necessarily because of Emily. So I think her biggest strength right now is her low threat level. She's not really drawing any attention to herself as of right now. And she's kind of letting the bigger personalities take the spotlight. And she's kind of just sitting back and letting everybody else duke it out right now. And then we could see those players in the middle like Christian, Aubrey, and Emily come back and start to take the power for themselves later. So she's in a good position right now. But she isn't in the best position, I would say. My number 5 would be Stephanie. And this might come as a very big shock because I just talked about how the Coach and Chrissy vote has just screwed over Joe and Jonathan. They don't really have a lot of connections. They lost a lot of key ally members. And I don't think the case is the same for Stephanie. This is not a bad move for Stephanie. Now, Joe and Jonathan are 2 huge threat levels that kind of overshadow hers. She has a lot of connections with Christian, with Emily, with the middle. She had some good connections with Sari, with Ozzy, especially. So she has made those good connections with the entire tribe, and she's got connections in every single alliance. And I feel like she is cutthroat enough to be able to move away from her honor and integrity group because I feel like the main 2 people that were like running that were Jonathan and Coach and maybe Chrissy. But I think she kind of like, I don't think she was as into the loyalty stuff. And I feel like she could play a more cutthroat game, especially going forward. But I feel like she's really underrated right now. She's got a lot of good relationships. She's not in a bad spot right now. So I could see her doing well in these next few episodes. Number 4 for me is Christian. He was actually my winner pick for the season before the season started. And he's been proving me right so far. I mean, he's been doing a very good job of keeping control of every single tribal council he's in. I think he's been in the majority in every single tribal council he's gone to, which is every single tribal council in the season so far. He hasn't missed a single tribal council. Um, he's kind of the center of the middle group where he's number one allies with Devons, obviously. Like, that's one of the key alliances in this game right now. He has good connections with Aubrey and Emily. He's kind of like a central figure in that group. And he has good connections with Suri from Sela tribe, same with Ozzy. And that does connect to Rizzo. And then you have Joe, I don't think Joe is necessarily targeting towards Christian so much as Devons. I feel like Devons acts as more of a shield for Christian right now, whereas Christian has a lot of relationships. He's very smart. He's been making a lot of strategical plays. He basically single-handedly took out Mike White. He did a very good job of getting Q out. And right now, he's not being targeted. So I could see him controlling this game and being a very dangerous player down the line. My number 3 is Ozzy. So if you couldn't tell, my top 3 right now are the members of Suri's Wizard of Oz, because I feel like that alliance is in a very powerful position. They have a lot of advantages, they have a lot of connections, they have a lot of power, and they aren't being targeted as much as other alliances. I think Ozzy is in the weakest position out of these 3, just because of him not necessarily having any strategic ownership for himself. He's mainly relying on Suri to get him through the game right now, which it's worked really well so far. It was a good move on his part. He recognized that he isn't as strong in the strategic game, and he aligned himself with Suri just to make sure he could fill that gap in his survivor gameplay. And it's been serving him well right now. He's in a very good position moving forward. He hasn't been targeted at all. He's got an idol in his pocket right now. He's a very, very powerful player right now. He's still pretty good at physical challenges. He just won not too long ago. I think it was 2 episodes ago. But he's a very strong player. I think his only concern is that he relies on Suri a little bit too much for the strategic play. But if he finds some way to cut her off before the final tribal councils, I could see Ozzy making a run for the end, which I don't see as much in other players. I feel like Ozzy has a stronger shot than like a Joe or a Jonathan, but I still have these next 2 in a league of their own, and they are definitely my favorites to win as of right now. So my number 2 is Suri. And yes, she did control the vote completely this last episode. She went to exile. She won her way back into the vote, but she was also safe because she didn't participate in the challenge. And so she came in and instantly switched the vote from Devons and Aubrey to Coach and Chrissy. And that worked way better for her game because she was able to keep connections with Christian, Devons, and the rest of the people in the middle. She has the best relationships out of anyone in the entire season. She understands the dynamics better than anyone, and she just orchestrated one of the most important votes of the season so far. She's doing exactly what you want to do in Survivor, which is building those connections, staying flexible, and making those big moves without taking too much of the direct heat. But the only problem with her is that she's an open book. People know how good she is. This is an all-star season. She doesn't have anything to hide behind. Everybody knows she's good. And people commented on that in their confessionals. They said she's a really good player, and that's why they were happy to see her, were happy to let her lead, because they were able to use her strategic abilities to make the best moves for themselves in the games as well. Her problem is she's the only one in her alliance that doesn't have an idol, and so she doesn't have protection right now. So if somebody does decide to take a shot at that alliance, she is the best person to target because she doesn't have an idol or protection. She still is in an amazing position right now, and I trust her abilities to get her very far in the game, and I'm honestly quite shocked. I thought coming off of winning traders, getting fourth in Big Brother, doing well in every Survivor season she's played. I mean, I thought she would be one of the first ones gone because people would immediately be quick to recognize her as a threat. But I guess she just has that magic where, like, she's able to make really good connections, and that's why Jenna Lewis was the first person booted off, because she instantly went against Cirie. So I could see Cirie going very far in this game, and I could easily see her winning the season. But my number one pick for who I think is in the best position right now in the game is Rizzo. And the reason is because I feel like he's got a lot of strengths that is just a little bit lacking with Ozzy and Cirie. He's part of the dominant alliance with Ozzy and Cirie, which already puts him in a very good position of power. But beyond that, he has an idol as well, which Ozzy does as well. But Rizzo has proven to be very, very good at playing his idol strategically. We saw this in Survivor 49, where he basically had one idol and he used it to get himself all the way to Final Four, and he lost in fire making. If he didn't lose in fire making, I feel like there's a very good shot he would have won the entire season over Savannah, even. So he's proved that he knows how to use these advantages effectively, and that experience does matter in the season, where there's a ton of twists, and having that protection and knowing how to use the protection can be very beneficial for him in this game. He's also a very strategic player. He's been working with Cirie for a while now. Basically is on the same, like, those three are very tight right now, but I could see him, if it got down to like a final 3 or something, where they have to like vote off one of their own members so the other two can progress farther in the game. I could see Rizzo working his magic on Cirie and getting out Ozzy. I feel like he has the charm. I feel like he has the strategic prowess to get rid of Ozzy here, or to further himself in the game by ditching his alliance. I don't think he will, but I feel like he has the ability to. I feel like he's in a very good position. And another thing that proved to me how good of a game position he is in is that Chrissy immediately threw his name out this tribal, which isn't the only time he's done it, but he did make a good point this episode that people that have come after him have been getting knocked out. Charlie came after him, got knocked out. Chrissy just came after him and Emily, and she got voted out. And so this awareness that he has, this control, this decisiveness, they're all traits of a strong winner. And so that's why I have Rizzo at my number one spot for the best position player in the game right now. But that's just my take. This game is changing very fast, and each episode is completely flipping everything that we thought we know going into each episode. It's completely changing power dynamics every single time. So let me know in the comments, who do you think's too high in my rankings? Who do you think's too low? And who do you think is going to win Survivor 50 going into the rest of the merge? I'll catch you next time for next week for episode 9, and I will see you later.